Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I'm the CEO of Leadershipity, a serial entrepreneur. I am a speaker, global speaker, having spoken over 17 countries. And today I am more than pleased to bring on my guest, Ross Drakes, the founder of Nice Work and fellow EOer. What's up, Ross?
Hello. I mean, I feel like you've cheated by having this amazing sizzle reel setting you up. Like, I didn't bring my AV crew with me to introduce it, but thank you very much for having me here, Trent.
Well, with Nice Work, you probably could put a whole big sizzle reel together, and you could, we're expecting a bunch of things on the backside of this, so like bringing Ross Drake alive on the Winners Find a Way show. So I expect that actually movie voice. You know, the guy who's like, this week in theaters, this Friday, yeah, tonight. Yeah, I do expect that. So most people
Okay.
know me as an author of Leading Winning Teams. I spent over 13 years in professional baseball. Then I was finding, these companies and growing these companies, and I realized, man, I had to get educated. So I joined a group called EO, which is the Entrepreneurs Organization. And man, that was huge for me, Ross, because I just didn't know people in my world who had the same challenges I had, right? And I was at that time in boardrooms with, big oil companies like British Petroleum and Citgo. And I was like, holy cow, man, I need to catch up. I have a degree in education. And now we were getting into this global business and I felt like I was behind. Um,
Mm.
Ross, you've been a long time member, 11 years. What really brought you, like, your entrepreneurial journey? How did that get going for you?
I've got I've got two qualities that have remained my whole life. One is curiosity, and the other one is optimism.
Mm-hmm.
So because I'm a curious human, I've always been seeking out interesting things that excite me, things that fill me up. And I discovered art at a very young age. So I was painting and I used to sculpt clay and drawing all the time. And this was a really kind of exciting thing for me. And then I realized after traveling the world for a few years that you could actually make that into a career. So I went to a place to study branding and marketing at a college called Vega. And when I left, well, during that, I was doing a thing called freelance, which is I was just doing creative work for people and getting kind of paid for it. And I was earning decent enough money that when I left Vega, I didn't need to take a job because I had enough money, and the kind of job offers that were out there at the time, I was like, but I can make more money than that working 2 days a week for someone, or and then I have 3 days a week to play around. So I was just in the space of doing whatever work I could find at the time. And in that process, I said yes to a lot of things. This is that curiosity kicking in again. I said yes to a friend of mine, Donovan, who was like, there was a big agency that got merged with another big agency, and their office was literally abandoned like overnight. So there was this building that was designed for 200 creative people, and it was now abandoned. And the founder of that agency was just trying to put creative people into this thing to see what could happen. And we got thrown into this building together. I said yes, and we were just working together on cool stuff. And that sort of showed us that there was an opportunity to start a business. So 18 years ago, we decided to start Nice Work. And interestingly, where we made the decision is we were on a dance floor in a club underground, and we were dancing, and it went something like, we should start a business. And we're like, yes, let's meet tomorrow morning at the coffee shop, and we will write the business plan. And we sat down at the coffee shop the next day, and we were like, borrow money, buy Apple Mac computers, get clients, win. And I was like, yes, we have a business plan. Let's go. And a week later,
That's awesome.
we were in the garden cottage of Donovan's mom's house, running our business, which the first pitch we did under the name Today and Tomorrow, because we were doing work today to secure your tomorrow. And then thankfully we thought that was, so we changed it to Nice Work, and that's how Nice Work was born. So I haven't done many different businesses, but if I look back on the history of the business, it's completely different today compared to what it was when we started it. And interestingly for me, the things that fill me up now and the things that pique my curiosity are very different today as they were then. But there's a beautiful golden thread that ties all of these pieces together, if I look through the many, many years.
Tell them, Ross, where they can find you. And I'm going to tell them a little bit more about you, but tell them first of all where they can find you.
So if you go to nicework.co.za, you'll find the company, and I'm the leader of that company, but there are many people there making all of that work. If you want to delve into the inner workings of my mind, you can go to rossdrakes.com and you can find the topics that I speak on and how I can facilitate for you and do strategy for you. And you can see a lot of the interviews and things that I do as the fuel for my curiosity that I then pull back into Nice Work.
That is awesome. And for me, Trent at leadershipity.com. You can check out leadershipity.com. You can check out Trent-Clark.com. And very similar backgrounds as far as mediating, speaking, all those things. And one of the things my audience may have noticed that Ross has a particular accent. Ross isn't from around these parts. I am in today, West Michigan, Northern Michigan. I am at Ferris State University, having this conversation with Ross Drakes, who happens to be in Johannesburg, South Africa. So I'm talking to him at about a little bit in the afternoon. As we all know, he's talking about pretty evening at his time. So I'm keeping him up, basically. And I'm thrilled to have Ross on the show. Married guy, 14 years, grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa. Has a little boy now, 6 years old. That's exciting. Been a member of EO for 11 years. I love this tagline, with Nice Work. You want to work with the bravest, the pirates, the innovators, the dreamers. This is who you're going for because you guys are so innovative. And I think that is that's a great alignment, because for people who are what I call toe in the water, like really risk intolerant, right? And like, hey, we'll only do this if you can guarantee us, 2,000% ROI on our spend with you, Ross. It's like, oh, okay, that is not the typical client. They may get that, but that is not the typical client who's never going to spend without 14 guarantees, right? And so is that a pretty accurate portrayal of the Ross Drakes? And what I didn't say is you're the podcast host of Rad EO, which is a fabulous show. I have been a guest on that show. You can check that out in the link below. We'll have a guest on the Rad EO where I was the interviewee for Ross. So we're flipping it around now where he's coming on Winners Find a Way, and I'm super excited about that. But is that a pretty good portrayal? What did I miss on that?
Yeah, so we love to work on things that we care about. So what do we care about? We care about people doing interesting things and pushing into places that other people haven't gone before. That's the kind of stuff that fills us at Nice Work up. And generally what we find is people who are brave, people who are pirates, people who are innovating, they're so far out there and they're doing things that other people haven't even been able to sort of comprehend or understand yet. But when they try and reach back into the market, when they try and connect with consumers, people now to sort of buy into this dream that they're chasing after, they often struggle because they're so far away from where the people are that they need to communicate with. And that's the gap that we step into. we know how to look at the purpose of why this person's there, to then think about how do we position that, how do we talk about that, how do we tell a story in a way that conveys their vision, that allows people to see it, but it's done in such a way that the other human beings they're trying to talk to can connect to it on an emotional level. And that's what we build the brands around. That's how we help people to share their message and get people to go, oh, I understand. Even though they don't, they understand enough to go, I see how you fit into my world. Now bring this brave stuff that you're doing out on the edge, bring it back into my company, into my house, into my family, wherever you're trying to kind of serve people. That's what we do really, really well. And why I love doing it is because you generally find that people that are out on the edge are doing it because there's a drive, there's a passion. They've seen a problem, they've seen an opportunity, they've got a personal reason to go after this thing. And that's the energy that we love to work with. I don't like to work with people who just like, okay, we're looking for 10% growth. Oh, we're looking, we just want to get more sales. And that's fine. It's just not the work that I want to do and that my team wants to do, because we get like deep into it and we get emotionally invested in it and we care about it. And it's important for us to find the right clients who want to work with us to do that kind of work. And when we do find that stuff, our clients love us. They love working with us because we get into it with them and we stand next to them and we kind of work with them to uncover that magic that drives them. And then all we need to do is translate that using our 18 years of skill back into the market and turn it into sort of things that people can do. And I do all of this because I hate nothing more than an insipid brand. That's somebody who's trying to sell you something and they phone you or they email you and you're like, why? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to sort of catch me like this? And it's not even a comment on the product. It's just how they pull it all together and serve it up to you is so boring. It's so ordinary. And there's just so much of it. And that's why you see so much things like people overspending on Google ads, on Facebook, because they've got this poor story. So they have to use all of these other tactics in order to push themselves in front of people and almost bully their ways into the psyche instead of putting it in such a way that people invite you in, which is a much better place to be, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's a much better place to play. I think, as you described that, I like to consider myself a visionary, one of those brave people, right? The dreamers. I don't know about I'm an innovator, but definitely a dreamer. Man, like it's great because I really feel like I can see it, and I can see what it's going to be. I can see what it's going to become, and now I need everybody else to see it, and that's hard. That's hard to bring
that's
everybody.
Challenge.
Yeah, and I'm not good at that, right? I need nice work to come in behind me and go, hey, they're going to get it, but let's put them in steps, right? Let's get them to see this and start visualizing the roadmap, and we're going to get them to where they need to see what you're going to do. But most people aren't going to just start there and do that big jump because they're here, and we don't go up the stairs like 6 at a time, right? We go the stairs 1 or 2 at a time, and we can jump, but we can't go from here to here in a hurry, and it's likely to become, a broken ankle or something, right? If we're trying it. So I can attest the fact I broke some ankles, right? Trying to set out that 8th step and say, hey, come on up. And everyone's like, oh, wow, that's a pretty big jump from where I'm at. And I didn't realize I was doing that. When I was younger, I didn't know. I'm like, hey, don't you all see it? Like, come on, let's go. Like, everybody move. So
yeah, catch up.
Yeah,
I'm here. Like, why can't you see it? I mean, I remember when you were telling your story, you were like, I was selling home gyms to these athletes. Yeah. It was like something. When you look at it now, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And of course, people did that. But you saw that before somebody else did.
Yeah.
And sometimes,
no one had them, right? No one had them.
Yeah. But you were so far ahead. Now, how do you explain to something? I've seen this thing, and now how do you? And you've got these different people at different levels. Obviously, there's people at the front end of the curve. You're going to see something new and kind of buy it immediately. But that's not where the vast majority of people are. The vast majority of people are waiting for everybody else to kind of for the wave
Yeah.
to be coming, and then they'll kind of get in. So how do we hook them earlier and get them to sort of trust? But I think coming back to what you said, your job is to stay out there on the edge. Like that's where you need to be. Like our job is to be like making those connections all the time, because yeah, cool, home gyms today, but then it's gonna be something else tomorrow and something else tomorrow. And this is where, if you get a good relationship going with a client, they can keep doing the thing that they are exceptional at, and then we can just follow on behind and keep the human beings in step with them.
Yeah, keep bringing them on the journey, right? Like,
Totally.
and I do think, you and I both have probably seen some brands that were really more innovative and ahead of their time, where they couldn't get people to see it. When I was a kid, there was VHS and like a high 8 video, right? Like it was we called it Beta at that time.
Yeah, Betamax.
And
Betamax.
sure. I mean, Betamax is like our flat screen TV now. Like it's an incredible digital, imaging. And of course, it was very expensive back then. And they were like, "Hey, everyone's going to pay $1,000 to have our high quality screen." And it was like, I don't know if I noticed the difference, because there were so few. No one could afford the TV. So even bringing the Betamax player into your old TV, you couldn't get the quality to see what we see now. And I think about, like, in our country, how much that vivid digital imaging changed the sport of hockey for the fan base. Because, when we were kids, hockey was so
It's just a
fast and the
blur.
puck's so small. Yeah, it's like the TVs suck. You don't know where the puck's at. Like, you couldn't really see what was going on. And what a change that brought. But now here you have this innovation of Betamax, but there's all sorts of blocks and gaps in their market to actually reproduce the value proposition that what they offer. And so they lost. And of course, VHS tied up the studios. VHS got all the entertainment groups, Fox, and all the brands that had the movies. They signed the contracts to put all the movies on their VHS tapes, which totally hosed Betamax, like immediately. So at the end of the day, just really better marketing. I mean, changed the VHS and the VCR, and all of us suffered a 15-year drought of better quality television because we had to watch this VHS crap and a tape that would break, and you're jamming and tying up inside the thing, and you're pulling out strings of film, and you're like, how crappy is this, man? And but we all lost out because of bad marketing, Ross.
But I think it's also I agree. Like I think there's business tactics that you can do, but what helps us in our work is, the first thing is you need to have a strong point of view.
Yeah.
So and this is why we like to work with brave people, because often they have that. They might not have articulated it beautifully, but you need to have a point of view about something that's not your product. Like your product is the solve to the point of view. Like I have a point of view. I know what I'm trying to solve. I know what I'm trying to make better. I know where I'm trying to take humanity. I know, I know what I'm doing, and I can be the champion for that. Then you need to position yourself as the solution to that point of view. So now you've told people that they have a problem, or you've shown them that there's a problem. You've come out as the champion of this idea or this category. Then you can slot your product in there. But how most people do this is they start talking about themselves, right? So they go, Betamax, we have high quality, we've got whatever, like longer tapes, we've got a big box, we've got, like these are all the things. But I don't have a high quality problem. Like I've got a terrible TV at home, so I don't have a problem like that. So I can't fit it into my world. And it's similar to imagine you go for a coffee with a friend, or you go on a date. And if that person talks the entire time, so you sit down, they start talking, they talk, you sit there for an hour, then you pay and you leave, and they are like, you know what, that was the best coffee ever. Like, Trent is the best listener, he understands me, he's a legend. You leave that coffee going, wow, Ross just spoke and spoke and spoke and spoke and spoke, and then we left. And I didn't get a word in edgeways. Now, when you are building a brand, when you are communicating, when you are the one who has something to say to somebody else, you need to remember that. So it's not about me talking about me, it's about me talking about you. So how does Betamax make your life better? And that was the leap that they failed to make in people's brains. They didn't go, this is how I can make your life better. And as soon as you do that, then I go, oh, that's interesting, Trent. Tell me how. Tell me how you're going to make. Oh, you know what? We've got a high definition, and a blah, blah, blah. Now what I've done is I've taken a point of view. So I've shown you that there's a problem. I've connected it to your pain, your desire, your needs. Then you've asked me, and now I've gone, here's my product. What happens is most people skip the first two steps and they just go, look at my product. Now, especially if you're on the edges, if you're being brave, now you're like, look at my product. I'm like, dude, I don't even understand what it does. Like, so now I can't reverse engineer this back into my life. I can't figure out where to use it, because that's the piece that you, as the brand builder, as the leader, as the communicator, have to connect. Is this is the vision, this is the problem, this is how it makes your life better, how it solves your problem. Oh, you know what? I also happen to make a product or a service or a thingy, and this is how we can kind of fit into your life. And as soon as they ask you that question, I've done a subtle change, but it's big. I've gone from being passive of you talking to me to being active of me asking you, me going, oh, that's interesting. Like, how do you do that? Why do you do that? Or this, like, what do you mean you use, technology to solve blah, blah, blah? Like, now I'm like emotionally invested, and I've made a little segment out for you in my life.
I like your position on brave. I hadn't been able to really articulate that very well in my life, but I always have told people I love when people draw a line in the sand and take a stand. And even Ross, when I don't agree with it, like, I just respect the fact, like, this is who I am. I'm going to be unapologetic about it. Like, and I can be like, okay, well, I don't really love that, but the conviction is admirable. And when I think about, I hadn't equated that with brave, right? Like that insert this, hey, there's a brave that, like, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get my soapbox up, and I'm gonna stand on it and go, now listen, I've got something to say, and this is important, and I'm thoughtful, and I've got a methodical way I believe what I believe. And here's the reasons why I believe it. And I'm convicted in those beliefs. And even if I don't agree, I find that bravery super respected and admiring. And so I appreciate that you helped me really articulate that, because I hadn't been able to put that brave word in there, and I think that really makes a lot of sense. It's what I do admire. And speaking of bravery, what most people don't know about Ross Drakes is Ross was an 11-year-old on the track to represent South Africa in the gymnastics world. You were a superstar. This is what you were doing. And man, there are very few male gymnasts. And man, I love watching these guys in the Olympics. Our collegiate environment, we have great college men's gymnastics, which is really impressive to watch. It's one of these sports that, of course, my deal is that when I watch them, not only am I impressed with the skill, but they're physically so fit, Ross. Like, it's not normal how fit these guys are. And I'm always like, man, I wish I was that fit. Like, these guys are mad fit, So tell
And
me about.
they make crazy things just look effortless. Like
Effortless.
what's that? The hanging rings, when those guys just grab that thing and then they just pull themselves up as if they are walking down to the grocery store, and you try to do that and you can't even, I can't get 10 centimeters off the ground, let alone all the way up.
No, and I think it's a great observation, because most people, Ross, have no idea how hard that skill is because they've never done it. And it's a shame because these are athletes that are making it look extremely easy. And it's like, oh yeah, I could probably do an iron cross. Like, yeah, probably not, man. Like they don't know. And so it's like, wow. And so, I can remember an athlete, who once was watching, we were watching the Tour de France together, and we were in the gym at the stadium, and he's a pro athlete, like he's a good athlete, but he's very a highly skilled and a specific skill athlete. So fitness level of training wasn't very high. He had a very specific skill that he was really good at, and it put him in a position to make a ton of money, which is awesome. But it was clear he didn't understand what was going on, and he was like, because he goes, man, I bet I could ride a bike for 30 days and win that race. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you don't know until you've ridden a bike up. You're in Johannesburg. I think you guys are about like 6,500 feet above sea level. When you ride your bike in Johannesburg up a 500-foot grade, you are feeling like you're breathing through a coffee straw, like these little tiny things, because at altitude everything's changed, right? And so it's one of the things, and I think you touched about it offline. When I do my training and running in Johannesburg, and then I'm going to go do a waterfront beach run somewhere in the world and go, like, this is the easiest 10K I've ever had, bro. Like I've got an unfair advantage because I have developed a VO2 and a lung capacity working at altitude that these folks don't have.
Yeah, I mean, it is, in theory, it's my secret advantage. Unfortunately, I don't compete in anything physically for as a professional, so I haven't actually managed to turn this into a real edge. But now you've inspired me. I'm going to go and find a few races at the coast and go see if I can win something.
Well, and with this show's popularity, Ross, I think your secret's out, man. I mean, like there's gonna. I know I'm gonna get at least 7 downloads out of South Africa. So I'm expecting your secret. I don't know if it's safe anymore. So if you were going for a confidential stretch here of your secret sauce, I may have just blown it. So let's talk about really like the success of Nice Work. Did you know, man, when you quit gymnastics at 13 years old, say, listen, I'm not going to do this anymore. I am for sure going to own my own brand, run a multi-million-dollar digital agency that delivers only the highest content to the bravest in the world. Like, is this going through your mind at 13?
No. I when we started the business, we were just doing whatever interested us. It was like a free for all of curiosity. But the one thing that we did do very well is we embraced technology. So we were doing interactive DVDs. I mean, it wasn't even DVDs, it was CD-ROMs. Like we were like designing and making interactive CD-ROMs in a program called Macromedia Director. Then we moved into DVD authoring because that was now a cool platform. Then we were doing early Flash interaction and Flash games. We did do a side hustle as we owned and ran a few clubs in downtown Joburg as our night revenue stream for a while. But then we realized sort of in your late 20s is where you start to run out of the ability to stay up until 4 a.m. and then still be at work the next day with a smile on your face. So those two worlds started to separate. But I think where we win now is, there's some DNA of the organization that helps us to win, and it's that curiosity. Like, we have to be curious. We have to be interested in understanding things and understanding the work that we do in our clients. So that's like a winning component that we've carried on through that, because if I can't explain it to myself, there's no way that I can explain it to somebody else. If I can't find something interesting in it for me, then there's no way I can find something interesting in it for your audience. So that's a sort of a thread that's carried on through the entire organization. But I think one thing that is helping us to win now is we've managed to move our entire client base from South Africa to the USA. So now we almost exclusively work with companies in the US. And
Wow.
what allowed us to do that was we've invested a lot in ourselves. So we have messaging models that we've designed, and then we've experimented with them in how does that translate into the web, how does that work on LinkedIn, how does that work for a founder speaking, sharing their point of view, how does that work when you think about what category you're going into, so we've done a lot of the work developing the stuff. So when you come to us, we've got a lot of IP that we can apply very quickly to your business, and you don't have to go through the 10 years of experimentation and tinkering. Like, we can just put your messaging in, and it flows nicely out to all of these things. But it's not just about that. I think it's, because we've played with it, we've made it very practical, because it doesn't help us when it's impractical. And this is where I see a lot of brand strategy, marketing strategy. The strategy document is a work of art. When you read that thing, you're like, I get it, I understand it, it's brilliant. But then I hand it over to you and I leave, and you go, I don't know what to do tomorrow. I don't know how my behavior should change. I now know that I'm deficient in all of these areas that this report outlines to me beautifully, but I don't know what to do tomorrow. And that's what I love about working in the US, is people in the US are like frontiersmen and women, like on a level that I've never seen in South Africa. People, they're like, you don't start a company and go, you know what, I'll sell $10,000 a month and be quite happy with this. Like, I'm going to start $1 billion, I'm starting $1 billion business today, and I'm kind of going for it. So I find that attitude and our sort of experimentation curiosity becomes a beautiful sort of engagement. So we get to go on these wild rides. And that's, I think, how we've found ourselves on the winning path that we're on right now, is pulling that experimentation into a new market. And then, because I'm not from the US and because I haven't lived there, I can see what makes it special. Like, I don't take it for granted when I see it. I'm like, oh, this is interesting to me, and this is unique to me. But then we've also got this thing. South Africa has 14 official languages.
Wow.
So I grew up in a multicultural, multiracial, multi-language world. So for us to be able to tell a story, we know how to find the humanness in all of it, because you can't rely on cultural similarity to sort of punch it home. So when we work, in different cultures, we can always get down to that human layer. And I believe that people emotionally connect better on a human layer than they do on a cultural layer, because the cultural layer, sometimes people just follow because that's just what my mom and dad did. Whereas if I speak to you about hopes, dreams, feelings, like, these are things that you feel inside your body, which is a much more sort of powerful motivator than, oh, we've always done it like that, which is not as powerful. And I'm now not sure if I answered your question or not.
No, that's good. I think that when we talk about the U.S., I do feel like I remember watching this old. It was a movie with Sir Anthony Hopkins, right? And it's called The Edge, and they're stuck in Alaska, and he's like this billionaire who's really good at finding solutions, which is how he's created a $1 billion empire, right? And he's a consummate reader, and so he's reading all about survival and all these things, and they end up getting in a survival situation, and he remembers reading stories about how survival worked and how people overcame it. And he's trying to encourage his partner, who's really concerned about actually making it, right? And he doesn't think he's gonna live, and he's like, listen, what one man can do, so can another. And he's telling the story of, like, this has happened before. It's what we have in America. We have models right in front of us who have done it. You know, and it's not like, oh man, I've never heard of anyone doing that and I've never seen it. We do not have to look far to see billionaires, to see people that have done it. And so we believe we could do it. You know, like why not, Ross? If this person did it, why can't we, right? And so I think that's alive and well. I do think there's a capitalistic entrepreneurial spirit that says there aren't limitations. The limitations I put on this whole thing is by me, not by others. Now, you know, a lot of people will argue like the government, there's plenty of things that like you just can't do like illegal stuff, right? So there are things, but I think there's an opening. But you know, Nice Work is this very successful brand today. Walk me through a time, Ross, when you know you were up against it. The reason I called the show "Winners Find a Way" because I was reading the Four Disciplines of Execution by Chris McChesney and Sean Covey, and it said, you know, winners, when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. It's like, man, that's like every person I want to surround myself with, because the people who don't, who like they find themselves like, wow, here's the data that I'm losing. If they start blaming people or they start making excuses or they quit or they ignore that data, those are four pretty losing behaviors that is never going to serve me. It's not going to serve them. And I feel like, man, I got to go the other direction from someone in that, because I don't want to get caught in that world. You know, that, you know what, it's not me, it's Ross. Ross did it. We would have been fine if it wasn't for Ross. Like, you know, blaming someone or the dog ate my homework, all the excuse crap. Owners and entrepreneurs take responsibility, and they really get that, right? So talk to me about a time where you were up against it. You know, you had clear data in your life that where you were losing and had to find a way to win. Walk us through that scenario and how it played out.
Well, so it's interesting. It's going to be a COVID story, but it's actually not a story about COVID. It's a story about realizing that you haven't created enough value to be relevant in people's lives. So we in South Africa, we did a hard lockdown in March 2020. So they shut us down. We were all told to go back into our houses, and we were allowed out 1 day a week to go to the shopping center, you know, like to go and buy groceries, or if you were going to the dog, you know, like you just couldn't be outside. So we went from being out there, and we were, you know, at the end of 2019, we were quite successful. We'd signed a few new clients. In March 2020, my revenue fell 80%.
Oh.
So my clients just started emailing me and phoning me and saying, stop working. We're not paying. We're not honoring the contract. Like, you know, just stop. Like, stop everything you're doing for us. And that was the moment that I realized that what we were doing for them wasn't valuable enough for them to continue doing it when the world was crumbling around them. Like, we were the first thing that they cut. But it was interesting to see how my team reacted and how I reacted in that moment. So, of course, there was a few days of despair, you know, and like, what are we going to do? But then we just started to get together and be like, well, you know, we creative people, we curious people, we know how to make people care. Like, what can we do? And we did probably 100 experiments. You know, we started representing data visually. We started helping our clients speak to their, you know, like, instead of going, okay, well, you can't speak to your market because your market's all at home, like, let's start speaking to our team. So we just started pointing our skills in different places to see what kind of resonated. And in that process, I started to go, okay, well, where is stuff? So South Africa's done now. Like, we can't do anything. Where else could things be good? Like, where else is stuff happening? And at that time, the government in the US was a little bit in denial about what this thing was. So they were just like, everyone was still going. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I started just, you know, leaning on the EO network and seeing what's happening in the US. And a friend of mine put up this thing that he'd started this new company, and I was like, dude, that is a terrible brand. You cannot start your company with that. And he was like, well, I've just started. I don't have any money, like I can't help you. So I was like, well, I'll do you a logo for free because that one is so bad. And I've got this team, we're doing all these experiments. Like, let me just help you and let's see where it goes. And that conversation led to us helping them with their pitch deck, which got them funded to the tune of $50 million, which that then led to us working with them on their brand and their positioning, which then led to us working with their funders and their sub companies. And it started like a long relationship of kind of very successful things, which actually almost ended up in them acquiring us because they wanted to sort of pull us in as their kind of in-house team. And in that process of going through the acquisition, we were like at the contract sign the point, the thing. There was at that point some sort of cultural, the two organizations couldn't fit together well. We were an established company that had been going for 16 years, and we had processes and systems and things that we kind of wanted, and they were in pure startup mode, like running around doing everything. Everyone had 9 roles. The pace was insane. And myself and my friend made a hard decision to not go through with the acquisition. But what I'd done over the 3 months has been prepping the company. So I'd been like speaking to my team, getting them ready, getting them excited. We'd kind of sunsetted a few of our South African clients who at this point had started to sort of come back and spend. So we kind of cut our revenue line. So we had the resource available so we could go into the deal and have human beings to kind of work for it. So we made that hard decision. And then after it didn't work out, I sat down with my leadership team and I was like, well, guys, we had this point, right? So we've transitioned to the US. We've fired all of our South African clients, and now this isn't happening. So this world that we came here for isn't playing out. So we've got 2 options, right? We can burn the boats and just forge forth into this new land and figure out what the hell, we can do here. Or we can get back on our boats and we can sail back to where we came from and we can rebuild when we're there. And unanimously, everyone was like, well, if we're going to rebuild, we may as well rebuild in the new land. We may as well go through the time and the energy and the effort. And it put us through 2 years of like hard cash. I mean, I became like a Tetris master of balancing cost versus like money, where it's coming from, paying back COVID debt. Like I was at one point I was doing daily cash flows to just make sure that everything was kind of balancing, and I became very good at convincing banks and lenders and people like that I was going to pay them, but not today, or I'm going to pay you, but I'm only going to give you a couple of dollars today, and I promise you I'll give you the rest tomorrow. So that was my sort of reality. But now we find ourselves in the place where we've got a few years under our belt in this market, and the transition was painful but necessary, and it made us better. And now our opportunities are everything is much better because we did that. We made that hard decision back then. So that's kind of how we've ended up where we are today. And I mean, last month was our best month in the 18 years of our business, and the rest of the year is already looking like the swing is continuing upwards, which is a really nice thing to be able to say on an interview.
Do you guys use an operating system in the backdrop of the business to manage the company side of things and do all that?
We use a bastardized version of EOS, and one of my goals for next year is to actually sort of formalize it, because I think I fell into the trap of believing that I know better and I can design my own. And what I've learned is that it doesn't actually matter what system you pick. Like, pick one and just let the system run. So find the one that sort of fits you, and just believe that somebody else has spent many more hours thinking about this than you have,
Yeah.
and kind of pull it in and use it.
I think that's great advice, and it's so true. I think about how many things I've tried to self-implement, Ross. Like, oh, I read the book, yeah, I think we can try this. Like, and then you realize, like, wow, and EO's a little bit like this, right? I think it's now coming up on 40-year-old, and you have a bunch of innovative entrepreneurs. Like, well, I don't know why we're doing forum like this. We should just do it this way. And I'm like, well.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been a lot of
No.
trial and error to this point. Let's just honor the facts. Like, they've probably worked this pretty well and have made all the mistakes. And why would we reinvent and redo that again? To go backwards, right?
Totally.
Like, but I think it's the innovator, tinkerer, visionary of us brave entrepreneurs. But let me finish with this. Two things. One is we honor the brave, we champion them, we love to be a part of them. I think most people want to work with the brave. I think they want to be a part of it. I know in my world, people like being a part of winning. Like, I don't think it means I got to win all the time, but they want to be on a winning team. They want to be a part of something that's doing things well and doing things better than the competition, and having success regularly. And as you look at the levels of success, we always battle this challenge on our teams. Like, you have one thing that, like, a lot of people get the credibility and the accolades for being the person out front, right? Like, and then the whole team, has all sorts of different moving parts, and the person out front may be getting accolade, but there's someone behind them that is in support, that is equally and maybe even more important, but that's not always how the accolades flow in a team. So what have you seen inside your organization and for other organizations that you think this challenge exists?
Well, so this has been an interesting journey for me, because I come from the creative side of the business. I call myself a creative turned entrepreneur, because I was always the one doing the creative work, like coming up with the ideas, writing the strategy, designing the logos, going and standing in front of the clients and presenting it, and watching their eyes light up when they see it, getting excited, like getting that kind of win. And now I've had to sort of take a step back into a different role where I'm not doing that, but I've got a team who's kind of doing that. And I always used to measure everyone according to that. Like, are you in front of the client delivering value, like making them happy? But we've got now a few people in our company who do no commercial work. They don't add directly to any bottom, like by any measure. You can't see where they're adding value, but what they're doing is they are taking the load off those people who are out there, kind of in the glory of it's like kind of winning. They are making things easier for you. They're making things clear for people. They are helping, like, just, I don't know, bringing a cup of tea when someone's working late. Like, these are like simple acts, but what it does is it allows people to focus at the thing that they do kind of well. And I believe that those people in the back line are almost more important than the people in the front line. And I'll measure it kind of very differently. But what I've had to shift as a leader is it's very easy to praise the salespeople, the deliverers, the people in front of the clients. Oh, well done, you scored. Oh, well done, you did that thing. Well done, you got that pitch signed off. Well done, you did that stuff. But it's now also going, well done to the admin team that makes sure, like, that they had all the information that they needed in the format that they needed it, so they could do that work. And thank you to Zakia in our kind of people portfolio, who's making sure that they're happy and that they understand how to get their leave, and they like they know how they're being measured, and they like all of the, and they're kind of psychologically in a great sort of space. And I believe in this so much. We've got a NLP coach who we pay for every single human being in my company, gets coaching, because it's important for them to believe that there's somebody in their side, like helping them be the best version of self. And it's the easiest invoice that I sign off every month, because Olivia sits with each of these people, whatever, they're getting married, they're getting divorced, their pet died, they don't know what the next step in their career is. They've got someone in their corner kind of helping them through that stuff, so that they can show up at work and do the work that I need them to do in order for the business to continue the momentum and the trajectory that I have. And all of these pieces need to be there. It's almost like I've designed my team. So I've got the support structure allowing a few people to do that kind of work, which I think is really important in any team. But it took me longer than I want to admit to realize that in my leadership journey, that there are these different layers, and that's really important.
Yeah, I like to look at our firm as like we kind of offer this Wendy Rhodes of billionaires. Have you ever seen Billions? There's the Wendy Rhodes, who's like the psychologist, making sure everybody's performing at their peak to get it done. And she's meeting with the individuals and the CEO. And then, of course, we have that. And then we put the operating system behind it in Leadershipity, and we use Bloom Growth for the operating system. And man, it's the outcomes are incredible, man. I mean, our results, Ross, are just going off the charts. And it's not because of me. I mean, it's because the system helps me from not mucking it up. Like, it gets in and gets in the system. I can't jack it up. So and the other thing I love about good systems and good systems and good process gives really good visibility and clarity. And so those are two huge iddies that we want on our teams. And ultimately that brings a lot of accountability for our organization. And I love that, because, when everyone knows their role and they know how to be successful in their role, and they got someone to come alongside and help them, make sure they're a success in that role, and good teammates, that's going to make a huge difference. And by the way, isn't it so much better to win with people than, even winning alone? Like, oh, I won. Great me. But when you move the team, we're celebrating together, and man, it's a game changer for me. If one of the things you guys are really known for is caring. I mean, you care more for your clients, your people, and it's evident, it's authentic. Your clients see it. They refer you probably because of it. Not just that, but I think it's one of a key element. I think things are going to get tough here. The United States is seeing it very quickly. I mean, we had a little runaway, of our economics here, and they suppressed it. They tried, to hide it from us, how bad it was, and they did a good job of it. And now everybody's feeling it. They're really feeling it, and so it's coming. And I'm seeing some really, poor behavior, Ross. I mean, when people are under pressure and under the gun, they don't tend to behave well. Not everyone reacts to stress in a positive way, right? So if you knew someone who's going through one of those challenges, like a COVID, you drop 80%, right? What would you tell somebody today would be a go-to strategy for you to move out, get grounded, get back going in the right direction?
So what we use at NiceWork is purpose is the tool that we've chosen to do this. It's a very interesting thing to use in those hard times. So at NiceWork, our purpose is to make things that people care about. That's why we exist. That's why we deserve to have a piece of your mind share. Why I get my company to live inside there, and why you believe it's there. So if you know what that is, as an organization, it's much easier to sort of reset. So now let's assume we used to do 5 things. We can't do 4 of them anymore. Okay. Like, what do we have? in nice work we can make things that people care about. So now that they don't care about this stuff, what else do they, what else do they care about? Where else can we point our energy and stay true to who we are? So we're not just scrambling to grab whatever, bit of revenues out there. You can kind of anchor back to that. But having worked in the space for a long time, I realized that there's two gaps when it comes to purpose. And the first gap is the gap between the leadership and the company purpose. Because sometimes it's the same, especially when it's a founder-led, founder-run, founder-dominated environment. It's Ross's purpose is nice work's purpose. But sometimes it isn't. And especially when there's multiple leaders in the business, it's really important for each of those individuals to understand what their purpose is and how that ties back and how that is fulfilled by the company purpose, because that's the thing that helps me when things are really tough. Like, so my purpose is to make the world lighter by spreading laughter, insight, and inspiration. So I know how my purpose, the individual Ross Drakes, is being fulfilled by helping Trent in this moment, kind of get your new product out into the world. Like, I know, I can see the line. And then the other gap is between the team or the company and the purpose. So like, now how does Janet in accounting, how is she contributing to that? And I think it's the job of the leadership to make sure that in those tough times that those lines are much clearer, because success is a very poor teacher. When we're winning and there's lots of money, we're all like, yeah, then suddenly we start losing. Now all the systems that weren't working as well as we thought they were start cracking, and the people aren't as glued as they were. That line, that purpose of like, okay, Janet, like by you making sure that our debtors pay us on time allows the cash flow to be in there so that we can pay people's salaries, because there's nothing more demoralizing than doing a really hard job and then not getting your paycheck at the end of the month. Like, you will lose people quicker than anything if you stop paying them. So now Janet understands how she's contributing into that sort of piece. So if you can articulate that purpose and you can fill those two gaps, I believe that most companies can make it through almost anything. I mean, sometimes you're going to have to do things like, right sizing the cost base in the company, like there's sort of fundamentals that you're going to have to stick by, but you can make it through. And then very interestingly, one of the things that happened to us in COVID is my creative director came to me and was like, we need to start cutting people's salaries. Because if we don't cut salaries, we're not going to make it. And anyone who doesn't want their salary cut at this point isn't in this company. They're just here to grab some cash. And that's an interesting thing. So that wasn't coming from me. That was coming from my team. They were like, I see this and I want this thing to survive.
Yeah, I think that the team sacrifice for the greater purpose and the purpose alignment becomes so important. And I'm glad, it's interesting to say that, because my last big hit, in the mid 2015s, 2017 range, I went back and studied the purpose-driven life. I was like, man, am I on purpose? Am I doing what I was made to do? And I really wanted to make sure that alignment was strong. And so I love that advice. For everybody out there on the Winners Find a Way show, welcome and thank you for joining us. Ross Drakes, good friend of mine, founder of Nice Work out of Johannesburg, South Africa, but clearly serving the U.S. market. So, hey, listen, look him up and check them out. And for everybody else, Winners Find a Way every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. We are on LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and Facebook Live, and you can find our podcast on all the major networks. I am Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity and author of Leading Winning Teams. You can check out my book down below. You're going to probably want to buy that signed copy with the recordings of our book launch, because that 8 hours is incredible content. And so, like we do every week, an hour of incredible content with Ross Drakes. Thank you, Ross, for being here, and for everybody else. Winners Find a Way.